Thinking fast and slow goes beyond how we think. It reveals the invisible forces behind our choices and shows how small errors can have huge consequences. If you want to make better decisions, avoid costly thinking errors, and understand how your brain really works, this book is essential. Written in 2011 by Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman, this book transformed how we understand human judgment. Decades after its release, its insights are still used in business, finance, and everyday life. Kahneman spent his career studying decision-making, revealing the invisible biases that control us. This book is for anyone who wants to think smarter, not harder. In this video, I'll break down Thinking Fast and Slow, part by part, covering every major principle. We'll explore how your brain operates with two systems, how heuristics and biases distort judgment, why overconfidence is universal, how choices are shaped by framing and risk, and how your two selves, experiencing and remembering, define your happiness. By the end, you'll understand the book's core message completely and know how to apply its lessons in real life. Part 1. Two Systems of Thinking. The core principle of this part is transformative. Your brain operates using two distinct systems of thinking, and understanding them is the key to avoiding mistakes, making smarter decisions, and seeing how your mind constantly works behind the scenes. System 1 is fast, intuitive, and automatic. It reacts instantly to the world around you, recognizing faces, interpreting emotions, detecting danger, and making split-second judgments. This system requires no effort, no concentration. It just runs in the background, guiding most of your everyday decisions. System 2 is slow, deliberate, and effortful. It engages when you must analyze complex information, solve a problem, or carefully plan your actions. System 2 is what you use when calculating your budget, comparing investment options, or carefully evaluating a job offer. Unlike System 1, it demands mental energy, attention, and patience. Psychologically, this division exists because your brain is designed to conserve energy. System 1 handles the majority of decisions because it's efficient and effortless, but this efficiency comes at a cost. It relies on intuition, past patterns, and mental shortcuts, and it often jumps to conclusions, filling in gaps with assumptions that feel right but may be wrong. System 2, which could check and correct these errors, often remains dormant unless you deliberately engage it. Imagine you're driving down a busy street and a ball suddenly rolls onto the road. Without thinking, you slam the brakes. That's System 1 at work. It reacts instantly to protect you, drawing on instinct and experience. Now, imagine you're planning your retirement savings. You must evaluate risks, compare options, and project growth over decades. That's System 2 in action. It requires conscious effort, calculation, and focus. Kahneman emphasizes that most costly mistakes happen when System 1 reacts automatically in situations that actually require careful, deliberate thinking. This distinction explains why your intuition can be both powerful and misleading. System 1 provides speed and confidence, but it can create illusions of understanding, misleading narratives, and errors in judgment. Kahneman emphasizes that just because a thought feels right doesn't mean it is right. A classic illustration is the bat and ball problem. The question is simple. A bat and ball cost $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? Almost everyone's first answer is 10 cents. That's System 1 providing a fast, intuitive response. The correct answer is 5 cents, which requires System 2 to slow down, analyze the numbers, and override the instinctive answer. This demonstrates how our brains can be confident but wrong when intuition acts unchecked.
Another everyday example is social judgment. When you meet someone new, you instantly form impressions. They look trustworthy, or I don't like their vibe. These split-second judgments come from System 1. While often useful, they can also be biased, incomplete, or influenced by irrelevant factors such as appearance or tone of voice, leading to unfair or inaccurate conclusions. Understanding these two systems allows you to make better decisions in almost every aspect of life. For instance, pause before making important choices, financial, professional, or personal, to ensure System 2 engages. Notice when your gut reaction might be misleading and gather more data or alternative perspectives before committing. This is especially crucial in high-stakes situations like investing, hiring, or negotiations. Fast thinking helps you survive and respond quickly. Slow thinking helps you act deliberately, accurately, and rationally. Mastering the ability to switch between these two systems consciously is the first step towards smarter thinking, better judgments, and fewer costly mistakes. Kahneman's insight is clear. Your mind is powerful, but understanding its limits is the key to using it wisely. Part 2. Heuristics and biases. The core principle of this section is that our brains rely on mental shortcuts, called heuristics, to make decisions quickly, but these shortcuts often lead to systematic errors, known as biases. While heuristics allow us to navigate complex information efficiently, they can also mislead us, causing predictable mistakes. Psychologically, heuristics are the product of System 1 thinking. Our fast, intuitive mind prefers efficiency over accuracy, jumping to conclusions based on patterns, experiences, or immediate impressions. System 2, the slow, deliberate thinker, can correct these mistakes, but it often remains disengaged because careful analysis takes effort. The result, we often act on intuitive judgments that feel right but are flawed. Imagine you're at a grocery store trying to pick a healthy snack. You see a package labeled all natural and instantly assume it's better for you. That's the representativeness heuristic at work. Or think about hearing on the news that a plane crashed and suddenly feeling flying is dangerous. That's availability bias, where a vivid story distorts your perception of real risk. Without even realizing it, your brain creates shortcuts that guide decisions automatically, sometimes leading you astray.
Kahneman illustrates heuristics with one of the most famous experiments, the Linda problem, which shows the conjunction fallacy. Participants read a description of Linda, a 31-year-old, outspoken, politically active woman concerned with social justice. They were then asked whether it was more likely that she was A, a bank teller, or B, a bank teller and active in the feminist movement. Most people instinctively chose option B, even though it's statistically impossible for a subset to be more probable than the whole. System 1 jumped to the story that fits Linda, ignoring logic and probability. Another critical bias is anchoring, our tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we encounter. In one experiment, participants spun a random number on a wheel and then guessed the number of African countries in the United Nations. Those exposed to higher numbers guessed higher, and those exposed to lower numbers guessed lower. Even random numbers unconsciously anchored their thinking. These biases are not just academic, they show up in everyday life. Investors may overvalue recent trends, availability bias, or stick with failing stocks, loss aversion. Employers may hire based on first impressions or stereotypes, representativeness. Shoppers may make choices influenced by pricing or labeling cues, anchoring. The key lesson here is that intuition is not inherently bad. Heuristics help us function efficiently and make decisions rapidly, but they can deceive us if we rely on them blindly. Awareness is crucial. Noticing when your mind is taking shortcuts allows you to slow down, engage System 2, and make more deliberate choices. Understanding heuristics and biases can improve decision-making across finance, health, business, and daily life. For example, when investing, check historical data instead of relying on gut feeling. When making personal decisions, pause to question first impressions or assumptions. Even something as simple as reading product reviews critically instead of trusting the most recent or vivid one can prevent errors.
Your brain is wired to take shortcuts for efficiency, but these shortcuts are double-edged. Recognizing heuristics and biases is like shining a light on the blind spots in your thinking. By learning to spot them, you can engage slow, deliberate thinking when it matters most, avoiding errors and making more rational, effective decisions.
Part 3. Overconfidence. The core principle of this section is that humans are naturally overconfident in their judgments, predictions, and knowledge. We often trust our intuition and prior experience more than we should, leading to mistakes that can be costly in both personal and professional decisions. Kahneman shows that overconfidence is not a rare flaw, it's a universal tendency rooted in the way our minds construct coherent stories. Psychologically, overconfidence emerges from System 1 thinking, which generates intuitive answers and feels certain even when information is incomplete or misleading. Our brain prefers a sense of certainty over ambiguity, and System 2, the critical, analytical system, often stays disengaged because analyzing every decision takes effort. The result is that we trust gut feelings and past successes, often overlooking risks, probabilities, or contradictory evidence. Imagine Emma, a young investor who reads a few news articles about a stock and feels certain it's a guaranteed winner. She invests heavily, ignoring historical data and expert warnings. A sudden market shift wipes out her gains. That's overconfidence at work. The confidence she felt was generated by System 1, but it wasn't grounded in careful analysis. Or picture a project team convinced their project will take 6 months, even though similar projects historically take a year. Their planning is overly optimistic, driven by the illusion of certainty, and mistakes are inevitable. Kahneman provides several examples of how overconfidence affects experts. Stock market analysts, for instance, appear highly skilled because their predictions are consistent with a coherent narrative. But statistically, their forecasts are often no better than random chance. Similarly, doctors, managers, and professionals frequently overestimate their accuracy when predicting outcomes, from patient recoveries to business performance. Confidence is not the same as correctness. It can feel real while being completely misleading. Overconfidence often amplifies other biases. When heuristics are combined with inflated certainty, errors multiply. For example, investors cling to failing stocks because they are certain the market will turn in their favor. Confirmation bias plus overconfidence. Managers hire candidates based on a strong first impression, believing their intuition is flawless. Representativeness heuristic plus overconfidence. Individuals make life choices based on gut feelings about relationships, careers, or purchases without fully analyzing the risks.
Awareness is the first step to reducing overconfidence. Kahneman suggests strategies such as seeking outside perspectives, reviewing historical data, and questioning assumptions. Even simple actions, like writing down a prediction before gathering data, can help check intuitive overconfidence. Practicing humility, acknowledging uncertainty, is not a weakness. It's a critical skill for making better, safer, and more rational decisions. Overconfidence also explains why people underestimate the planning fallacy. When forecasting timelines, costs, or outcomes, we are prone to optimism bias, believing we are better than statistics suggest. Recognizing this tendency helps individuals and organizations plan more realistically, avoid costly mistakes, and build contingency strategies. Confidence feels good, but it can be dangerously misleading. Overconfidence is a universal trait deeply embedded in human cognition. Kahneman teaches that the most effective way to make decisions is not to eliminate confidence entirely, but to balance it with careful analysis, humility, and awareness of biases. By slowing down, questioning assumptions, and engaging System 2 thinking, you can transform overconfidence from a hidden liability into a controlled, constructive tool.
Part 4. Choices and Decision-Making. The core principle of this section is that human decision-making is often irrational, heavily influenced by context, framing, and perceived risk rather than purely logical evaluation. Kahneman shows that the way choices are presented, along with subconscious biases, often shapes our decisions more than objective facts. Psychologically, this builds on everything from System 1 and System 2 thinking to heuristics and overconfidence. System 1 reacts to emotional cues and immediate impressions, giving us quick judgments. System 2 could, in theory, correct these judgments, but in practice, we rarely engage it for everyday decisions. The result is that our choices are predictably biased, influenced by how information is framed, our aversion to losses, and the stories we tell ourselves about potential outcomes. Imagine two friends choosing a surgical procedure. One hears a 90% survival rate and quickly agrees. The other hears a 10% mortality rate and hesitates. Both received identical information, yet their decisions diverge dramatically. Or picture an investor deciding between a risky stock and a safe bond. Loss aversion makes them cling to the safer choice, even if the stock has higher expected returns. Kahneman shows that context, framing, and perceived risk often control our decisions more than raw data or logic. A central concept Kahneman introduces here is prospect theory. Unlike traditional economic theory, which assumes humans are rational actors seeking to maximize utility, prospect theory demonstrates that people are loss-averse. Losing $100 feels far worse than gaining $100 feels good. This explains behaviors like holding on to losing stocks too long, avoiding potentially profitable but risky investments, or over-insuring against minor risks. Loss aversion is a cognitive bias deeply embedded in our decision-making. Kahneman also highlights how we misjudge probabilities. Rare events are often overweighted, leading to irrational fears, like fearing plane crashes more than car accidents, while common risks are underestimated. People also tend to overestimate their ability to predict the future, a reflection of overconfidence from Part 3. These biases make us susceptible to poor financial choices, bad planning, and skewed risk perception. Understanding how framing, context, and loss aversion influence choices can transform decision-making in daily life. Investors can avoid overreacting to market hype or fear. Consumers can make better purchasing decisions by ignoring manipulative marketing. Managers can evaluate options objectively rather than relying on gut impressions. Even personal life decisions, choosing a career path, negotiating a deal, or selecting a health treatment, benefit from slowing down, analyzing outcomes, and engaging System 2 thinking. A subtle but powerful point is that small changes in how options are presented can dramatically alter decisions. By reframing problems, consciously accounting for loss aversion, and questioning initial impressions, you can improve your decision-making and avoid falling into predictable cognitive traps. Human choices are not purely rational. They are shaped by emotion, framing, and subconscious shortcuts. Kahneman teaches that by recognizing these hidden influences, engaging slow, deliberate thinking, and questioning intuitive judgments, we can make smarter, more deliberate decisions. Decisions are not just about logic. They are about understanding how your mind interprets, weights, and reacts to information. Part 5. Two Selves. The core principle of this section is that human experience is shaped by two distinct selves: the experiencing self, which lives in the moment, and the remembering self, which evaluates and records experiences. Kahneman reveals that our judgments about happiness and satisfaction are often driven more by memory than by real-time experience. Understanding this distinction can transform how we make decisions and assess our lives. Psychologically, this insight explains why people make choices that may feel good short-term but do not maximize long-term satisfaction, or why we sometimes pursue experiences that create lasting memories rather than immediate enjoyment. The experiencing self measures real-time pleasure or pain, the warmth of the sun, the thrill of a roller coaster, the joy of tasting your favorite meal. The remembering self, however, constructs stories about those experiences, heavily influenced by peaks, endings, and memorable moments rather than the total duration of the event. Imagine lying on a sunny beach. Your experiencing self feels relaxed, content, and happy. Later, when recalling the day, your remembering self focuses on the moment your shoulder got sunburned or the spectacular sunset you witnessed. Those two moments dominate your memory, shaping how you evaluate the entire experience. Or consider a week-long vacation. The daily routine may have been boring or stressful, but a single breathtaking hike, delicious meal, or fun outing becomes the highlight that defines the memory of the trip. Kahneman shows that our remembering self often drives our decisions even more than the moment-to-moment feelings of the experiencing self. This concept explains why people make decisions that optimize memory rather than actual experience. For example, choosing a vacation with a single memorable adventure rather than a relaxing but uneventful week. Attending an event that promises a spectacular finale rather than consistent, moderate enjoyment. Spending on experiences that will look good in stories and photos rather than purely for personal pleasure. Kahneman also demonstrates this with studies on pain and suffering. Patients undergoing medical procedures rated their experiences not by the total discomfort, but by the peak intensity and how the procedure ended. Even prolonged mild pain was often rated more favorably if the ending was less painful. This shows how memory distorts reality and how the remembering self dominates life evaluations. Awareness of the two selves can help us make better choices about how we live. We can design experiences that satisfy both selves. For the experiencing self, focus on consistent daily enjoyment and small pleasures. For the remembering self, create meaningful, memorable moments that you will look back on positively. This insight also encourages reflection. By paying attention to both real-time experience and lasting memory, we can better balance work, leisure, relationships, and investments in personal growth. Decisions guided by both selves lead to more sustainable happiness and satisfaction. Your life is judged not just by what you feel in the moment, but by what you remember. Kahneman teaches that understanding the experiencing and remembering selves allows you to make choices that maximize both immediate happiness and long-term satisfaction. Happiness is a combination of living well and remembering well, and by being aware of these two selves, you can intentionally shape both. Final summary: thinking, fast and slow. At its core, thinking fast and slow teaches that human thought operates through two systems: the fast, intuitive System 1 and the slow, deliberate System 2. Our brains rely on mental shortcuts, heuristics, that allow efficiency but often lead to predictable biases, including overconfidence and misjudgment of probabilities. These biases shape our choices and decisions, influencing everything from personal finance to health, relationships, and professional outcomes. Kahneman also introduces the concept of two selves: the experiencing self, which lives moment to moment, and the remembering self, which evaluates experiences and forms the stories that guide our lives. Much of our satisfaction and decision-making is influenced by what we remember rather than what we actually experience. Through experiments, real-life examples, and storytelling, Kahneman shows that intuition is powerful but fallible. By understanding these mental processes, slowing down to engage System 2, questioning assumptions, and being aware of cognitive biases, we can make smarter decisions, avoid costly errors, and design lives that balance both immediate pleasure and long-term satisfaction. Thinking isn't just about what your mind can do, it's about understanding its limits. Influence isn't about acting fast, it's about knowing when to pause, reflect, and think clearly. Personal reflection. Reading Thinking Fast and Slow completely changed how I view my own decision-making. I realized that many choices I had considered intuitive were actually System 1 errors, guided by gut reactions rather than careful reasoning. For example, I often made quick financial or work decisions based on first impressions or short-term gains, only to notice later that my outcomes weren't as good as expected. Understanding the two systems gave me the clarity to pause, question, and analyze before acting, which immediately improved both small daily decisions and bigger life choices. One moment that hit me personally was reflecting on how I plan vacations and experiences. I noticed I frequently prioritized things that looked memorable in photos or stories, rather than experiences that truly brought me daily enjoyment. Kahneman's concept of the experiencing self versus the remembering self made me rethink priorities. I now focus on creating balance, pleasure in the moment, and memories worth cherishing. In my professional life, overconfidence used to sneak in unnoticed. Kahneman's explanations of heuristics, biases, and the planning fallacy helped me adopt a habit of questioning assumptions, checking data, and seeking outside perspectives. Even small adjustments like double-checking estimates or revisiting intuitive choices have prevented costly mistakes and made me a more deliberate thinker. Overall, this book didn't just explain human thought, it transformed how I approach life, decisions, and reflection. It made me more mindful of the limits of intuition and the power of deliberate thinking, and it taught me that understanding my mind is the first step to mastering it. Thinking Fast and Slow is a groundbreaking exploration of human cognition, but it is not without limitations. Its strongest contribution lies in making complex psychological research accessible and actionable. Kahneman masterfully illustrates how System 1 intuition, heuristics, and cognitive biases shape almost every decision we make. The experiments and storytelling examples like the Linda problem and the bat and ball question make abstract concepts tangible, allowing readers to see their own thought patterns reflected in real life. However, some criticisms are worth noting. Much of Kahneman's research relies on controlled experiments, which may not fully capture the complexity of real-world decision-making. For instance, many studies involve simplified scenarios or hypothetical choices that don't account for the emotional, social, and contextual factors influencing everyday life. Additionally, because the book synthesizes decades of research, some data, especially from older studies, may be considered outdated by today's standards or limited in cultural applicability. Despite these points, the book's value remains profound. It does more than present research. It provides a framework for self-awareness, encouraging readers to spot cognitive errors, engage deliberate thinking, and improve decisions. Its insights are relevant across finance, healthcare, business, and personal life, making it a timeless guide to human judgment. Bottom line, Thinking Fast and Slow is not perfect, but its clarity, practical relevance, and deep psychological insight make it a transformative read for anyone seeking to understand the mind and make smarter decisions. If you found this summary valuable and insightful, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch or read. Leave a like and subscribe to stay updated, because I post 3 book summaries every week, breaking down the best ideas from psychology, self-improvement, and decision-making. Thinking clearly isn't just about knowing concepts, it's about applying them in your everyday life. Whether it's spotting biases, slowing down before decisions, or designing experiences that balance enjoyment and lasting memories, the lessons from Thinking Fast and Slow can transform the way you think, decide, and live. Share your thoughts in the comments. Which part of your thinking do you notice relies most on System 1? Have you ever experienced overconfidence leading to a big mistake? Thanks for watching or reading, and remember, fast thinking helps you survive. Slow thinking helps you thrive. Apply what you've learned, and your decisions, big or small, will never look the same again.